Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. For those of you who join us regularly, you know this is the podcast where we dig into those profit leaks in your business. We are not one of those people who are super charged up about top line revenue because we think bottom line profits is way more important. And so every episode, we're constantly digging into where can we find those profit leaks in your business and then help you get them plugged. We can help you get them plugged through our different coaching programs, through our various guests that we've had on the podcast, through the resources that they've shared, as well as our own resources. So, with that, I just want to say thank you again for joining us for another episode. Today, our guest is Ryan Hogan, and he's going to share us some wealth in the area of hiring. I know that's an area that so many of you struggle with on a daily, if not weekly or monthly basis, because it's hard out there to find good people. And that is a humongous profit leak. If you remember several months ago, I had Rami Alagial on the program and we calculated the cost of a bad hire. And it went anywhere from 40,000 to 200,000 depending on the position in your company. That's a lot of money leaking out of a company in the way of lost profits. So with that, welcome Ryan. Let's see if we can't spin this up and give them some ideas on how we can make good hires and get it done right the first time and not have to repeat that over and over a bit.
I love it. Thanks so much, Diane. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
You're welcome. So I know you work with home service businesses as well as other kinds of businesses. And what are some of the things that you see when you look at their existing teams?
Yeah. I I think there's like quite a few things that are happening right now, and especially in the home services and trade space. And what's been really interesting is watching this kind of fundamental shift of, white collar and blue collar and this and that and like where kind of value's been placed throughout the last, call it like 50 to 70 years. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is organizations are struggling to find talent. And this is very much specific in the trade space.
It
Um,
is.
and so that's one of the things, like as soon as we walk through the door, it's one of the things that we're looking at, which is like, how are you retaining your current talent, your current team? How are you evaluating them? And then obviously, like, how are you recruiting them? How are you bringing them into the organization and appropriately onboarding? But those are some of the things, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on this one, because of your audience, is like finding, attracting, and retaining talent in this industry is one of the biggest challenges.
So why don't we start with retaining the good talent that you have on your team, those A and B players on your team. How can we keep them so that they'll hang around and not leave us for an extra 50 cents or dollar an hour?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that play in here. There's this old adage of like people don't quit companies, they quit their boss. And so there's this big thing here, that I've experienced throughout my entrepreneurial career, which is culture. And there was this old quote of culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Hmm.
And the whole thing that when we come into an organization, number one, what are their core values? And this seems like a very boring subject. It's like, hey,
It's not.
yeah, like, hey, we're talking about like, how do I retain talent? And I would say like you retain talent by focusing on the fundamentals of the business first, holding everybody to the same standard, making sure that everybody clearly understands what it is that they're responsible for, how their performance is being measured, setting those clear expectations up front. And I think the biggest stretch that I had was understanding that very early on in my career of like how big talent, or excuse me, how big culture and core values and core behaviors played into the actual retention. And that starts, quite frankly, before talent even gets through the door, because not only should you be evaluating for those things as you're onboarding and recruiting and vetting and going through your own process, but it's also incredibly important that the people that are inside of your organization, they all see life the same way. And that starts with core values.
And I can see some of my guys out in the field out there going, but wait a minute, Ryan. I've got this job I've got to get done. This vendor's wanting this. Maybe a GC is wanting that. I got this employee whining about this. This part didn't show up when it was supposed to. How in the world am I supposed to stop and figure out my core values?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's interesting, like even from a recruiting standpoint, I remember growing previous organizations and my marketing leader would be like stressed and he has so much on his plate. And I'm like, hey, you got to go find someone to take this. He's like, great. Like I realized that once I find that person and get them and onboard them, I realize that my plate will open, but I'm already at 120% capacity. And this new task is going to put me up to 150.
Right.
I think like, we can't create time. So that, there's no way to invent time and produce more time. Like there's only so many hours in the week. And to me, this really starts with like, what are the priorities of the organization? And what I mean by that is those problems in the field, those problems with jobs, like whatever those problems are, they're going to exist tomorrow. They might be in a slightly different form, but those problems are always going to come. And that's when you're working in the business. Folks that are really thinking through what are our core values? Like where are we today and where are we trying to take this thing? That's working on the business instead of in the business. And there has to be a balance there. And in the early days, like it's not going to be, oh, well, I was 100% over here and I'm just going to switch it to 100% over here.
Doesn't happen.
No. And so it's baby steps and it's setting milestones. And so for me, it's really about kind of creating that space and starting to think through those things, starting to set the foundation, um, and then communicating and ultimately going from there.
I know when I was first starting in that part of my journey, I actually had to book an appointment with myself on my calendar and have somebody else on my team hold me accountable to hold that appointment so I could sit down and start working on those types of things because I was too busy. There
Yeah.
was too much going on in here, too many fires I was putting out. I was the proverbial fireman with my fire hose trying to put all the fires out,
Yeah.
not realizing that if I would just back up and stop and do some of these basic foundational things, I wouldn't have to spend my whole day putting out fires. And I don't spend time putting out fires now. But boy,
Yeah.
that was a hard lesson to learn back then to carve out that time and protect it with your life so that you could actually concentrate on things as simple and basic as core values.
Yeah, I love what like. Time blocking is such a great strategy. It's on my calendar. Holds go on my calendar so that people can't book
Yep.
appointments over top of it. And time blocking for me is about like allocating time for very specific reasons. Today, and this has nothing to do with necessarily talent, but like today we had a meeting with our marketing person where we reviewed reports of like the industry and trends and things like that. And my partner and I, after the call, we sat together for an extra 15 minutes, and she was like, "That felt different," and I was like, "That feeling that's working on the business, not in the business." And it's important to find those moments and set aside that time.
And protect them so that you
That's
and that
yeah,
you don't give them up for something else that seems equally important. I
right.
just recorded a solo episode the other day on the cost of I'll fix it later.
Yeah,
And what a profit leak that is. And this is a prime example of something like the core values. It's not comfortable. A lot of my, home service guys are not into this touchy-feely kind of stuff. And core values can kind of fall into that area for them. It's not comfortable. I don't really know how to do this. So I'll just go jump over and take care of this problem over here
yeah.
because it's
I
easy, it's comfortable.
I can 100% see that. The thing with core values is it sends a signal to your team, to your clients, to your part. It sends a signal. What does your organization stand for? And there's no right or wrong here. So, for
Nope.
instance, if you look at Tesla's core values, they're going to be very different than call it like Zappos, which was all about like customer centric and we'll pay you 50,000 to leave after the first 90 days if you don't think that you belong here. Like two very, very different cultures. Not
Mhm.
right, not wrong, but it's that magnet. Like once you have that and you're sending signals into the market, like this is who we are and this is what we stand for, you're going to get into this really interesting scenario. gosh, it's I think it's Dan Brown, but one of the things he talks about in his book, Attract or Repel, which is like you should either be repelling talent or you should be attracting them. And I think core values is like fundamental to sending that signal.
Yeah, we don't want to be neutral. We don't want to be that middle of the road, white vanilla, boring vanilla type of a business. We really want to know here's who we are, here's what we stand for. Either you're going to love working here or you're not.
Yep.
I know one of my core values when I'm hiring is no drama kings or queens,
Yep.
not allowed inside my office.
Yep.
And people who read my hiring ads, when I do have one, said that is the one thing that will draw them to reach out for us for an interview. They want to work in a drama-free office.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, no drama allowed. Leave your drama outside. We have clients to care for and work to do. And so that's a very big attractor or repeller. Just something as simple as that.
Yep. And that's you brought up an interesting point about like job descriptions or job postings. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is when we sit down and we start to understand what it is exactly that an organization needs, the first thing we do, we call it the blueprint. And the blueprint distills the exact responsibilities into three sentences and we categorize it number one, number two, number three. These are the three things. Are there more? Are there different requirements? Like, yes, but these are the three top things that they're going to be overall responsible for. And then here's the metrics that they're going to be accountable for. And we take that blueprint and then we put that blueprint into a job description that's going to be posted onto a job board. And the biggest difference that I think a lot of folks don't realize is job descriptions is really a marketing tool.
They are.
It's to put into the market and convince. And I think a lot of people they don't look at it like that, and so they're trying to attract everybody. And I actually think it's okay to be brutally truth in your job descriptions of the things that you're not looking for, because that's going to right now, it is what's interesting is it's a hot market. There are a lot of people right now that are looking for jobs. And you would think that that makes it much easier for business owners to find talent. It's actually the
Okay.
opposite.
Yes.
Because now business owners go out and they put a job posting and they're getting 500, 700 resumes coming through, and they've got to review all and they've got to field through everything. So being able to send that signal out into the market of like, this is what we're looking for and this is what we're not looking for, we think is pretty critical.
Oh, I do. I totally agree with that. Just like any coaching program or anything that you're running, that I'm running, whatever, here's who's a good fit, but here's who's not a good fit for it.
Yep.
And that way you're not wasting each other's time, energy, any of that stuff. And you can attract the right kind of people into your organization. And
Yep.
I just think that's so critical to have that information in your job description. And so I'm glad that you guys are really encouraging them to do that.
Yep. Yep. Exactly right.
Yeah, gone are the days of when we used to have to put it in the newspaper and you had to get everything in 4 or 5 lines.
Yeah.
Those days are gone. We've got
Yeah.
space, we can put more information in and be very clear who we're looking for and who we're not looking for.
And that's the like, everybody's talking about this like the big AI movement. And here's the reality of what we're seeing right now from a recruiting standpoint in AI. Which is like the same job platforms exist. You've got Indeed, you've got LinkedIn, you've got ZipRecruiter. But what we're seeing is AI on both sides, which means people that are looking for jobs can go and buy a license for a platform, feed it its resume. The AI platform will review the resume, and then the AI platform will go out and auto apply to every single job in the market that
Oh,
fits that
goodness.
criteria. And then on the other side, you've got different types of like recruiting platforms and things where you plug in AI and it'll go through and try and clear that 1,000 resume queue and get it. So now you have like robots talking to robots trying to make human decisions, which is incredibly challenging. So
Oh, yeah.
it's interesting because it's harder than it looks out there, even though there's folks looking for jobs.
It's like sometimes AI is amazing and other times it just complicates things.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Um, like one of the here's how we think about AI is like the systems and the platforms, as long as we're staying on the most like up-to-date, relevant platforms and software systems, they'll figure out AI. So like we're not going around and building agents to help us. Like we think that recruiting is very much a human to human process.
Yep.
Are there things you can automate all day long? Can you automate outreach? Can you automate like getting people onto a calendar? There are certain aspects you can. But can you automate like a robot sitting across from somebody and trying to evaluate them based upon, are they going to be a good fit for the culture? Do they have the skills and we don't believe that. And
I
the
don't
other,
either. Yeah.
the other thing is to get great talent, you have to sell them. Like recruiting is very much a sales process. And one of these misnomers I had very early on in my career is like I have a job posting, therefore like people should want to work for me. Like I don't have to convince anybody. That's the
That's
best of the
gone.
best.
Yeah.
You have to sell them on the opportunity.
And they all want to know what's in it for me.
That's exactly right.
So you have to be prepared to answer those questions and answer them in a way that they feel comfortable with what you've told them. Not
Yep.
just feeding them a line of BS or something, but they feel comfortable that yes, I think I could enjoy working here.
Yep.
Because we're not in the era of our grandparents who worked for 30, 40, 50 years in one company, got their little gold watch when they left and moved on into retirement land. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
People move around now. They don't stick with companies as long as they used to. So when you get good people, we want to hang on to them and cultivate them and help them grow, which means we've got to do a better job up front in that whole recruiting and interview part of it.
That's exactly right. And the other thing I think that we see quite a bit in the trades and home service space is everybody thinks they're competing on money, meaning like the shop down the
They're
street
not.
pays $22 an hour. So if I pay 23, I'll be able to attract. I promise you that there are things that humans value more than an extra buck an hour. Like if we're talking about the difference between, $20 and $50 an hour, like maybe, but that's not a profitable business at that point because you're paying too much for talent and now you're charging too much for your call or for your services. The reality is there are so many different dynamics with what people are looking for. And before you even start to like sell them without making the assumptions of like this is what they want, a part of that is asking. Some people value time off, and so they just want to know that when they punch out at 5 p.m., that you're not going to call them at 6:30 and say, "Hey, we have an emergency. I know you're at dinner with your family right now. Come on over." Maybe someone else is like, "I just want overtime, and like I need that." Every human wants different things, and so understanding like what makes that human tick, what do they value, is incredibly important once you get to the phase of where you're like, this is the one, and now we've got to go sell them.
What are some of the other things that you see, potential employees looking for?
Yeah. Um, I, I'll tell you the biggest thing that we see is upward mobility. People
Okay.
want to know that they have an opportunity to grow. That's generally like what we're seeing in this environment is like, okay, I realize I'm coming in at this level, and maybe they're already at that level where they're at. And the reason that they want to leave is because they want to move up to the next level. Maybe they're out there doing the work every day, and they're like, I was born to be a manager, and I'm not going to have that opportunity over here. And so, what I want to know as an organization, are you going to invest in my development? Are you going to show me a path in which I can achieve that next level, whatever that means for them? But for some reason, that comes off as a surprise because everybody's like, oh, it's all about compensation, money, benefits, things like that. Listen, those things are important. If you're going to strip away all their benefits and pay them, 40% less, good luck. But everybody's selling for the most part. It's a commodity. Like everybody's selling the same services, and it's like it's who can attract the best talent, have the best culture, um, and provide the best quality service is really who's winning out there.
Mhm. You're giving these guys a lot to think about.
That's good.
Let's equate this back into bottom line profits. If we have a revolving door and we can't get people to stick, we're spending money on the recruiting side.
Yeah.
We're spending money on the interviewing, recruiting before we ever interview, then the interviewing process, then the training process, then we hire and they don't stick. And then you have residual effects out to the rest of the team because now they're frustrated because I just had Joe ride along with me for the last, how long, and now I got to start over with somebody else, and it's just such a ripple effect out when we make a bad hire,
Yeah.
or if we lose our good top person in
Yep.
whatever position within the company. If we lose that really good solid person, the ripple effect on that one is huge as well. And those types of things hit your bottom line hard.
Very hard. And sometimes it's hard to see, right? Because the immediate reaction when that situation presents itself is anger, frustration,
Mhm.
like you name it, you're just pissed, quite honestly. Like you're pissed. Like you spent all this time and money to bring this person in. Um, it- but that's the first reaction. The reality is a lot of these things you cannot see on the P&L. Like you can't unless you're like actually tracking someone's hourly time and applying that hourly time against their recruiting efforts and allocating it into this different portion of the P&L, which I don't know anybody that does it.
No, I don't
So
either.
yeah, so it's really hard to see what you're losing in there. And it's interesting because you were talking about earlier, the cost of a bad hire is 50 to 200,000. I'll say it depends on the level, because like one bad hire in my last company cost me 1.5 million, and it
Oh
wasn't
my goodness.
it wasn't 1.5 million that like came from the company bank account into this. It was the opportunity cost.
Yes.
Like, what did we miss out on because we got that hire so wrong? And then obviously, like after action reports to see what we could do different in the future. But the thing that I think most people don't understand is like this is very much in the P&L. It just doesn't show up as a line item. And so it's mostly an emotional reaction and not like a crap, we just lost a crap ton of money on that.
I always tell people there's no line on your P&L when strobe lights going profit leak here,
Yeah.
profit leak here. That's just not on your P&L. And so you have to be aware, and you have to be monitoring things and running comparisons and watching your KPIs, and you'll eventually be able to figure out what was the cost
Yep.
of that bad hire. I know on myself, I had a bad hire in here, oh, a year and a half ago. The
Mhm.
the cost on that bad hire was probably wasn't so bad on the actual money side, but I cleaned up her mistakes for probably 10 months
Yep.
afterwards. I kept picking up somebody's files like, no way. How in the world did she do that? And so I just kept cleaning up and cleaning up and cleaning up and cleaning up,
Yep.
and didn't realize that she sold herself as being up here, and she really was way down here.
Yeah.
And
And now like so you can put a monetary value on your time. So you say like my time is
Mhm.
worth this and it's taken this much of my time. The thing that starts to blow people's minds is if if you think about the things that you would have actually been doing to drive the business forward instead of investing your time that has a monetary value, now you start to look at the opportunity cost and it's like that
in
cost a lot more
my
than
case,
yep.
probably three to $400,000. Because I look at
Yep.
what my sales were last year, and they were disgusting compared to where they normally are.
Yep.
Because of losing her, and then all that cleanup, we had to rearrange clientele. I mean, it was a mess
Yep. Yep.
because of one bad hire.
Yes. And these hard stories, like, you and I just having this conversation and we're just trading. Like, I probably have, oh gosh, more stories about that. You probably have more stories
Yeah.
like that. Like, this is not an isolated incident. Like, there are business owners out there everywhere making similar decisions and not understanding that, like, that was a two, $300,000
Mhm.
mistake.
Yeah. And I know my husband has gotten frustrated with me because it took me so long to clean that up
Hmm.
and actually feel like I'm back on top of my business again. It took me probably 10 months, but I
Yeah.
felt like I was back on top and my business was rolling again like it should have been. That's 10 months of lost opportunity, 10 months of not being able to work on my business, and the goals that I had for last year had to just get set on the shelf while I cleaned up this mess.
Yep.
And that was a huge, huge cost
I feel,
because
I,
of a bad hire.
I feel your pain on that one. I feel
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so these things hit bottom line profits, and people aren't always understanding where it came from.
Hmm.
They're not correlating. My sales are down 30%, correlating that back to a bad hire.
Yep.
They'll,
Yep.
but they'll be looking at, well, we're not getting enough this or that, or we're not doing, but they're not realizing it's not all just on the sales side. It's coming from within
Yeah.
because sometimes it wrecks your team
Uh,
for months and you have to rebuild that team back up to where it was and get it healthy again. So they're all working together and not being silos out there and doing their own thing because they lost trust in the company for a period of time.
And so now you just brought up a third point. So the first point was like, what was the value of your time, and how much was the dollar cost associated with that? And then the second thing that we talked about was the opportunity cost. So if I would have been working on other things, like what was the opportunity loss for the company? Number three, this is huge, and we talk about this all the time, is the degradation to culture. How much of a ripple effect or impact did that have across the entire organization? The problem with a bad hire, and I would say 90% plus more of the time, a bad hire is not a bad person. Like this
No,
has nothing to do
no,
with like that human. It has to do with they didn't align with the values of the organization, and they're going to go be successful somewhere else and
somewhere else.
prosper
Yeah.
when they find that place. The problem is now that you've let that in, that has now impacted the entire culture of your organization. And so now you start to get into wild and crazy numbers because distractions, degradation in culture, maybe your churn improved. Let's say you brought in a manager and like it wasn't an individual contributor, it wasn't someone on the field, but it was somebody that was managing six people. What we talked about earlier, like people don't quit companies, they quit their bosses. And so now think about like what's happening in the minds of those six people for the person you brought in and then had to let go. And now like the impact that it had for all the people that reported to them.
And did you lose some of those six people before you got rid of that manager? Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's I mean, because that's a key indicator, right? Like when we're looking at things that aren't working, one of those things that we can look at is like, has turnover increased in this specific
Mhm.
area? And then, oh, it has. Well, why would that be? Oh, it's because we made this change. By then it's too late. That person just left and three more have their resumes on the street.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And I think it's hard, especially in the home services world, because our mainly, I'm going to be very generic here, mainly our home service business owners came up through another company.
Mhm.
They got good at their trade. They felt like they could do it better out on their own, but they're not walking in with an MBA in business management or leadership or something along those lines. They've
Yeah.
learned it through the trenches. And so sometimes they feel, I think, that they're maybe not as equipped to handle these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Nobody taught them how to do this. Maybe they didn't experience it in their previous company, and all of a sudden that came almost like a blindsided piece to them. What just happened?
Yeah.
And they're
I
scrambling to figure out what happened.
One of the reasons that we've been so focused on the trades and home service space is because our business is built through partners. So we create, cultivate, nurture amazing, incredible relationships with humans or individuals that are called EOS implementers. And that's kind of how we got into this vertical, into this space. And everything you just talked about there is 100% true, which is a lot of people that get into business, they're very skilled in that specific area, but lack the business. I'm the opposite. Like I'm just a crazy person. I go and find that person that's skilled, and then we partner, and I'm the business person and they're the skilled person. Um, but the thing here is like there are systems out there that can help with that. And so you don't have to go to business school. EOS, read the book Traction, go self-implement, like start taking the steps to add some sort of framework to operate the business. That's really where we've seen like gigantic success in this vertical.
Right. Yeah. Wow, this has been interesting. Here, I thought we were going to nerd out on something else, and look at where we landed.
Look at us. Look at where we are.
Let's talk a little bit about successful hires.
Mhm.
You find the right person, they come in, they fit well. Where does that go?
Yeah,
Give them some hope. We've kind of trashed on the other side. Let's give them some hope.
yeah. I think like we look at recruiting as kind of like three different phases. And then each phase has probably 3 to 5 of its own phases. But phase number one is truly understanding what you want or what you need. What does the organization need? All too often, we find business owners out there, they go out and they just copy a job description, they paste it into their own thing, change the company information, and post it to the world. It, every job is different. Every job has a different requirement. Maybe it's like different field work. Maybe it's commercial versus whatever it is. Like everything should be very specific to what it is the organization actually needs. Number two is recruiting, and that's the process that an organization runs for recruiting. And then phase three, which I would argue is just as important, is onboarding. And making sure that you've got a solid onboarding plan is critically important because you just spent phase one and phase two so much money, so much time, so much everything. And then I've seen I've seen examples where like people show up on day one and they're like, "Oh, who are you?" Like if that's happening to the team or to
Goodness.
to the new teammates, like they're already jaded at that point.
Yeah.
So let's say we get through all 3 phases. We had the perfect onboarding. I think what's critically important is transparent communication and performance evaluations, and making sure that the teammate, the employee, understands like where they're at today, understanding their needs. We talked earlier about this idea that some folks want career trajectory. So they're like, I'm here. I want to be at the next level, and that's my goal. Well, if you sold that during the recruiting process, but they come through the door and they're just a rock star and they're killing it and they're running circles around everybody else. And for 6 months, you haven't even talked to them about what it will take for them to elevate to that next level. Like that's starting to degrade trust. And so, really, what you're trying to do from a retention standpoint is not just build the trust, but like maintain and sustain the level of trust that you built through the recruiting process. And I think that's like you just got to care. Like you got to care about what's going on in your folks' lives. You have to care about their dreams, their ambitions. I mean, this is the business side of it. This is certainly not like the actual expertise side of it, but like it starts with caring. And when you understand like what matters to those people and you really lean in to help and support and enable whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, whether personally or professionally, like that's where you really start to see some outsized gains in retention.
Right. And as long as we can retain them and they're doing a great job, life is good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Well, we've come to this portion of the program where it's time to talk about those hidden or unique profit leaks that you see when you're working with home service businesses. So let's give you my magic question of what is a hidden or unique profit leak that you've seen when you work with home service businesses?
Yeah, I had some stuff written down for this one. We just went so deep into the retention part of it that I don't know if I can retread on that one. So I'll give you. We focus on sales roles, and so where we really consider ourselves like subject matter experts is sales roles and sales processes and things like
Okay.
that. And so a part of what we do when we come into an organization is we understand their process. We want to know how are those leads coming in? How are those leads being nurtured? How are those leads being closed? And it varies. And this is a big thing with hiring salespeople is there's a big difference. We have probably 5 roofing companies right now. And all of them have different sales processes. One
Oh,
of them
wow.
is boots on the ground, you're knocking on doors and you're selling like right there. Another one is they go out and they buy these warm lead lists. They invest a lot of money into these warm lead lists, and then they're just all about nurturing them. Another one is all about insurance, and so like understanding like how to navigate the insurance space, and then being able to sell houses with that value proposition where it's free for you because we'll convince the insurance. They all do it a different way. But one of the things that we've seen, not just the follow up aspect, but the speed, and one of the things in sales is like speed kills all deals. So like the slower things go, the more likely it is that that thing is going to stop or is going to fall off. When you have a lead and consider it warm, meaning that like it came to you from some sort of channel, Uh, in one aspect, like maybe it was a warm lead from a list where they went through some sort of application form saying, "Hey, I need a new roof," or "I need new siding," "I need a new HVAC system." Maybe that lead came through the insurance aspect. There's a whole bunch of different ways. But one thing that is critical, especially with warm leads, is how fast you go after them. And we went into this one organization and they were getting these leads and they were waiting 72 hours to start to call them. So if you imagine
Wow.
someone has a gigantic need, there's a pain point, and gosh, I need this service, this thing. Like taking 72 hours gives all of your competitors an opportunity to get in front of them before you, because eventually they're just going to pick up the phone and they're going to start calling around to
Colin.
different shops. So that's one of the areas that I would say is like making sure that there is a tried and true consistent sales process that emphasizes the urgency to get to close is probably one of the biggest areas we see as we're placing amazing sales reps.
All right. Wow, that's a good one. I know when my husband and I were wanting to build our new home, we went through six different builders. We got a couple names as referrals, called them, set up a time for them to come out and look at our property. And one of the six actually showed up, and the one that showed up never returned our calls. And I'm
Ha-
like, really, guys, we have cash in our hand. We want to build a house and we have cash. We're not bank finance, we have cash. And you can't show up. And we
That's
finally got frustrated and went a different route and ended up with a modular home because we could get it quickly. Our year was getting away on us, and if we were going to get in at that year, we had to move. But I
yeah.
couldn't believe that. That
I I,
yeah,
I bet you I'm willing to bet that the owner of those companies had no idea. They
yeah,
had no idea. I and that's what we see when we walk into organizations is like an owner thinks that they've got some sort of process in place, but what's actually happening on the ground is no follow up,
yeah,
no shows, show up and then never returns calls. Like,
yeah. Never
could
returned the
you
call.
could you imagine the owner of that company? You just call him, and be like, "Hey, did you know?" And he's like, "What? I could have done all this for you, but we didn't even take the time to follow up."
Yeah, he
That's what we
measured.
see.
He walked around our property and made measurements and stuff,
Yeah,
and never called us back. We called, we text. He never returned our calls, and went, okay, I guess we better find out something else. That was the
yeah,
weirdest. I'd never experienced anything like that before because I'd never had the need to build a house.
yeah,
But it just shocked me that they were so lackadaisical about the calls.
yep, yep. You see it every day. You see,
Yep.
like just the fact that like almost all of your experiences like that out of the gate were, I mean, it's the little things. It doesn't take much. It does not take much to compete in this space.
Yeah, the bar's
Consistency,
pretty
follow
low.
up. Right, right. So the companies should be killing it. The ones that like actually put in the care and the effort and have a process in place, they're killing it. And that's what we're seeing is those are the ones that are killing it.
Right. Yeah, we had a guy on a few months back who had grown up and then sold an HVAC company. And he was talking about the little things that they did, the way they reached out and built relationships with their customers, and their sales just skyrocketed because of that. Not
Yep.
because they were spending more money on advertising, but because they were nurturing their current customers. And it's like, what a fresh perspective, which is why I brought him on the program,
Yeah.
because it was like such a different perspective than what you normally see. So that
Love
was
it.
pretty cool. So, yeah, so thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no
So,
problem.
how can our listeners learn more about you? And if they're looking for some good salespeople, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Hogan, CEO of Talent Harbor, and we recruit salespeople for the trade space, for the business service space, and we really emphasize the focus on salespeople because it is so hard to find great salespeople. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. One, it's like you have to hunt, you have to have your own sales process to go find and convince those salespeople to come in. And so my last company, we invested way too much into recruiting. And I was like, there's got to be a change here. And so we developed this new model, this new process. And it's specifically tailored to the SMBs in the US. So you can find us at talentharbor.com. My email is Ryan at TalentHarbor. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. Search either Ryan Hogan or it's / Ryan E. Hogan after the LinkedIn.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing that, Ryan. And this is such an important topic because it does affect those bottom line profits dramatically, not just incidentally, but dramatically.
100%.
So
We're on the
thank you.
same page.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the program today. And listeners, I know you found value in this episode. I don't have to ask you if you did, because hopefully you were taking some notes, jotting down some ideas as Ryan was talking, and you'll take those ideas and actually implement them. Because great ideas with no implementation was just a waste of your time. So implementation is the important piece in all of this. If you would like help identifying those profit leaks in your business, please reach out to me. I'd love to hop on a Zoom call with you, get to know you a little bit, learn a little bit about your company. We love identifying and plugging profit leaks. It's so much fun to watch you guys' eyes light up when we're able to show you where profits and cash are leaking out of your business. So for today, I'm going to say this has been a great episode. For those of you who like those little freebies that we give away all the time, why don't you take a moment and download our top 15 profit leaks resource that we have? One of those just might jump out and say, "Here I am, fix me," and put you on your way of adding some profit in your bottom line dollars. All right, Ryan and I are going to sign off and say thank you again. We'll catch you on the next episode. Bye bye.